Hi guys, welcome back to the channel.
We're recording already?
Yeah.
Oh, hi, hello. Well, we're off not to a great start, but like here we go. Hello.
So today I have a special guest with me, Antonio.
Hi, hello.
To help talk about our first show of the season, Le Corsaire. Le Corsaire has a very long history.
Yeah, and we're gonna dive into it today. Yeah, we're
Unfortunately, a lot of that history is a little bit problematic, but
yeah, it's quite messy, I have to say. Like, there's a lot of like, yeah, things we have to go through and stuff, but we're here for it. We're here to help you. We're here to make you learn something new, because life is all about learning something new every day.
About realizing things.
Realizing stuff.
Yes, exactly, about like your personal journey through history facts, because yeah, and
Why are you the one on, you're that Miss America, the one who was such
yeah, Miss South Carolina, like, yeah, because I think like
South Carolina.
she's just like, yeah, because US Americans.
US Americans.
Also, like, that's not a thing. Like, okay, but whatever. Back to Corsaire.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to be talking about is the history of Le Corsaire as a ballet. Antonio is an expert on ballet history.
I like to be called the Wikipedia of ballet, which, yeah, I take that title very close to my heart.
So let's just jump into it.
So now we're like diving more into like the performance history more than like actual synopsis, like the libretto of the ballet.
The history of Le Corsaire.
Exactly how it all began. The ballet first premiered in 1856 at the Paris Opera. So we need to think like that was a time of like big spectacles, big ballet, and Le Corsaire was like the perfect plot for the audience taste of that time. It's based on a poem by Lord Byron, which was an Englishman, and it's based on the poem actually called The Corsaire in English. The choreography was first made by Joseph Mazilier, and it was like a huge success. The story is more or less the same as we know it now. Of course, there have been like many changes in terms of like putting a piece there, or putting a, like, well, the main thing is that the piece itself hasn't changed much because it's very inspired by the poem, but it was like a great success back in the time in Paris. So actually, Le Corsaire was restaged in Russia 2 years after the premiere. So it was 1858 in St. Petersburg by Jules, which was actually the choreographer of Giselle. And Petipa, let's say the father of classical ballet, happened to be there in St. Petersburg as an assistant. So that's how he got the first glimpse of Corsaire. And he decided not to revise it just once, but 4 times. The original score for Corsaire was by Adolphe, which was also the composer of Giselle. Marius Petipa, the guy we just mentioned, was assisting in the process of reviving the Corsaire for the Russian audiences. And with Perrault, they created, still based on Adam's original score, no other composers were added at the time, still on Adam 4, they created 2 extra pieces that are unfortunately not present in our repertoire nowadays. They got lost somehow. Ballet lovers will know probably the most famous piece from Le Corsaire is the pas de deux, which is performed everywhere at any location, every competition.
A staple of classical ballet.
So instead of that, in the grotto scene in the second act, there was a piece called Grand Pas des Éventails, which means that Peripa, you didn't have to flex it that hard. It was a piece for Medora, our main character, our main heroine, with 16 choreographers holding fans, because Éventail means fan, and La Scène de Séduction, the seduction scene, which really we've never heard of that.
But you know what? It's fine.
Maybe it's for the best. Maybe it's for the best. So apparently, this piece, this Grand Pas des Éventails, this fan dance, used to be a success back in the time, because all these dancers with these fans, they will create kind of like a kaleidoscope. Is that how you say it?
Kaleidoscope.
Kaleidoscope, there you go. So it was creating this kind of effect, which I cannot say, and it would remind of like a peacock feather, like a peacock tails. I still don't get why we don't have that anymore. I think the principal would be so much happy without that part of the, like, yeah, that's how history goes sometimes.
I mean, of course, as you can imagine, ballet has changed and like evolved so much over the years. It has gone from being something more or less a court dance, so not like something that would be done in like theaters or something like that. It originated in the French courts.
It was like pure entertainment at first.
It was
and then
pure entertainment, so of course in the beginning the most important thing was the story and the emotion.
Which is sorry to interrupt, but I think it's still what it's supposed to be now.
It's still
you know
what it's supposed
like
to be now, but unfortunately we have fallen into a hole of
horrible technique.
A hole of technique. I mean, it's easy to lose what's at the actual heart of ballet, which is telling a story and emotion through your movements instead of just raw technique and hoping that the story will go somewhere.
So actually, like, well, okay, we need to remember these 2 guys, Perrault and Petipa. Petipa is like the future queen. Perrault is like the forgotten duchess. Perrault was in charge now of the revival, but somehow Petipa, because he was very talented and very ahead of his time, he actually, I think, took more charge of this revival, of this Russian revival, than Perrault did. And he had the two of the most staple pieces of Corsair that we know now, which is the pas d'esclave, which is most of the time appearing in the first act, which is the bazaar scene. And then another scene that can either appear in the bazaar or in the third act, which is the harem, the palace of the pasha, the king, is the pas de trois des odalisques. So it's the odalisque dance. Actually, fun fact, inside of this pas de trois, it wasn't a pas de trois at the beginning at all. Actually, the first music that we know, the entrée, the original production was just like a waltz for like a group of random slaves girls, but then it became the entrée, and he added other music from Cesare Pugni, which was an Italian composer. So there you go, we are already starting to disassemble, like to like destroy and add new things. So that was the beginning.
That's how it was back in the day. Corsaire is kind of just like a remix of Petipa's ballets that he enjoyed, and also what the dancers could do at the time.
So anyway, that's how it went already for the first revival. Then Petipa became the director of the Imperial Ballet like later on in the years, and because the show itself, it was such a success, Petipa decided to this time take full control of the whole thing, and he during the years already created 4 revivals, not 1 but 4. So many.
She was busy.
She was very busy working on the same thing all over, you know, artists. So for his first revival actually, which was in 1863, he created a revival actually for his wife, Maria Petipa. Like how weird, like you're Marius and Maria Petipa, like that's so weird. Like he did this first revival where, for example, he included the character dance that only the Bolshoi still now performs it, which is called Le Petit Corsaire, which is Medora en travesti, which means in drag. It literally means in drag, and she was being like a drag king. She was actually dressing up as one of the Corsaires, and she's like holding like a small trumpet or something. Then the other like big part that has been created and inserted during the 4 revivals is Le Jardin Animé, which is the garden scene, which is, I would say, like the wide act scene of Corsair, because back in the times it was really in vogue. It was really fashionable to have like a dream scene.
If you look at almost any of the old great ballets, you can see that there is a scene
everywhere.
Like this. And I would also say that it's one of the more iconic scenes of Le Corsaire.
Yes, you're doing great, sweetie. Yeah, so it was created actually by the OG choreographer of Corsaire, the original one, which was Joseph Mazilier. It's so complicated, you guys. It's so much happening.
There is so much more history of Le Corsaire that we cannot even go into because this video would be really long. So if anyone is actually really interested in the history of Le Corsaire, I'll have all the links of all these articles that we've been using as source. I mean, Antonio knows this kind of stuff by heart, but if you're interested to read more on the subject of Petipa and Le Corsaire and all of the whole history, I'll have those links, of course, in the description below.
So Le Jardin Animé, so the Allied Garden, which is like the wide act scene from the Corsaire. In some versions it's a dream, in some version it's not a dream, but the choreography hasn't really changed much. It was initially called Pas de Fleurs, which means step of the flowers, and actually the music was composed, the initial waltz that we all still not me, but like all the girls still dance. It was actually created by Leo Delibes, which comes from another of his ballets, not Coppelia or not Sylvia, which is
some of his most well-known ballets.
Exactly,
are
there you
still
go.
performed to this day.
But another ballet which is completely unknown, which is called La Source, which means the stream, the river. It became now, it was called Valse de Naila, and now it's part of the Corsaire. The
Corsaire just absorbs all the pieces
it's just like,
left over.
It's such a mess, you guys. Like, it's just like, really, please go check that link below, because I just don't think we're doing a great job. But you know what? We're bringing happiness and warmth to people's hearts. But now we have to jump in the last of notes, because we left out the most important part and the most known part of the whole ballet, which is the pas de deux. The piece that we all know about, the piece that is performed in every gala and competition, like that staple piece everyone has to dance all the time, which is present now. Like, it's the most famous piece. It's
all
like the most famous
have
piece,
done this in split sometime. It's like a staple of every single dance competition.
Yeah.
It's in every single summer intensive.
Oh yeah.
It's literally, it's everywhere.
Like it reaches like the.
It's what Le Corsaire is most known for, maybe in the modern day.
Yeah.
Because since like huge classical ballets are not as prevalent now, just because not enough companies maybe have like the resources to do them or really want to do a ballet like Le Corsaire, which has a really interesting history and also is just it's very classical, and maybe it's not for the modern audience as much as maybe another classical ballet would be.
Right.
But so, yeah, it is well known.
Yeah, which funnily enough, it wasn't even choreographed by Petipa. The music from it's absolutely not from CORSAIRE. It's like a panache, it's like a mix, it's like a potpourri of whatever suitable music was to be found from other ballets or from like whatever symphonic compositions, and they'll just put it together and somehow it became Le CORSAIRE Pas de Deux.
Iconic.
So for this Pas de Deux, already 2 versions were created, not even by Petipa, but like other people. Like one of them was Sergei Legris, who was like a very famous teacher back in the days in 1903, long time ago. But somehow both Pas de Deux that were created did not make it to the final cut. It wasn't even that music, nothing. They attempted, but it didn't happen. But we gotta skip until 1915 when this guy called, Samuel Andrianov, who was actually the teacher of the famous George Balanchine. He was the first to create on himself and the super famous dancer of that time, Tamara Karsavina, which was also the one to debut in the roles of the Firebird and Petrushka as a ballerina. So that's how it first created on himself, and an extra cavalier who was also there, which I guess it then became later the role of the slave, Ali, which was created much later after Petipa's version. Which, for example, some versions have it and some versions don't have it, like ours from Manuel Legris. So it was mostly created as like a technical virtue, but it wasn't the same choreography. The choreography as we know it, as it is performed today, has to be credited to another huge famous person, another huge famous figure in the classical ballet world, which is Agrippina Vaganova, the mother of Russian ballet. It was created actually in 1931 for a graduation performance of her favorite student Natalia Dudinskaya and her future husband Konstantin Sergeyev as Medor and Conrad. But she decided to turn the Pas de Deux, the dance for 2, into a Pas de Trois, a dance for 3, which was created for another great icon of Russian Soviet ballet, Vakhtang Chabukiani, and she created for him the role of the slave. So that's why most of the time now this Pas de Deux, it's also known as a Pas de Trois. We all gotta credit Vaganova for that. And that's mostly it. Of course there are many more things to say, but really check the link down below in the description. Yes. We haven't like paid full respect to it, like I'm really sorry for that.
It's crazy and there is so much more to learn about this ballet, so check out the link below. So quickly before we move on to the synopsis, the version that we got of Le CORSAIRE, which is Manuel Legris' version, was originally premiered in Vienna around 4 years ago.
Fun fact, I was at the premiere because I was in school in Vienna, so there you go, but moving on.
Le CORSAIRE hadn't actually been performed in Vienna in many years, and so Legris decided to do a revival of it, which we then received 4 years later and premiered last season. Yeah, that's pretty much the history of Le CORSAIRE, or as much as we're gonna touch on it.
Roughly, let's say roughly.
We're just gonna jump right into the synopsis of the ballet, which is gonna be pretty interesting in the 21st century.
Get ready, girls, buckle up.
Buckle up, here comes the Le CORSAIRE.